Hi students, this is a quick tutorial where we are going to go over some Sketch basics. So talking about the user interface itself and the different areas of the screen. We're also going to talk about using some of the basic page layout elements that are available in Sketch. We're going to talk about using some San Francisco symbols, and what you're going to do is you're going to be designing a basic page layout for a simple screen of an app that is asking you to rate a picture and giving you some options to like the picture, refresh your page, or to share the picture out. So we are going to be recreating this, and I'm going to be guiding you through the steps of doing that as we go here. So let's get started. So you should open up Sketch, and you are going to get the new new document thing, so click on that. That's going to be a different screen than what you're seeing here. The other thing I want you to do is open up San Francisco symbols, and those should be just open in the background. So you'll see the icon will show up here. If you can't find it, go into the Launchpad, and they should be on either the second or third page. For me, they happen to be on the second page. So you should have Sketch open and San Francisco symbols open. So let's take a look at what we have here. We have our toolbar up top that has various things that we can use to adjust things that we've created. There's even more stuff up here. On the right hand side, this is called the inspector. This is an Apple term. The inspector is kind of a menu that shows up on the right that changes depending on whatever it is you're working with, and it tends to show things that are relevant to what it is that you're working with at the time. So if you're using a text box, you're going to get things having to do with text. If you're working with a shape, you're going to get things having to do with a shape. So it kind of gives you a quick go-to spot to find things that are related to whatever it is you're designing. On the left side here is our pages menu, and right now it looks pretty empty because there is nothing. Right now we have a single page, and we have our canvas here that is totally blank. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to this thing. This is a very powerful thing that we are going to use a lot. This is the insert menu here. And what we're going to do is we're going to insert an artboard. And what that does is that gives us a whole list of things on the right side of our screen, namely a list of preset devices, preset resolutions. You can see that, as we know, all the different devices have different size screens, which translate to different ideal resolutions for those screens. Okay, and if you click on Apple devices, you'll see that there are other options as well. Like I've mentioned to you before, you can design for Android on here. You can also design for web and other platforms, but we're going to stick with Apple because we are designing for iOS in this class. So I'm going to choose an iPhone 8 for today, and I'm going to zoom out by placing my two fingers on the trackpad and pinching close together, like zooming in and out. You can zoom in and out by either putting your fingers closer together, pinching, or pushing outward, zooming in and out. So you'll notice that since we've created an artboard, we have some new things on the side here. We can change it to a landscape mode if we want. We're not going to do that because we're going to be designing in portrait mode. We can also assign a background color, which is kind of cool. I'm going to choose a color. I'm just going to pick a very, very, very pale blue. All right, cool. I'm going to click outside of that to get rid of it, and we will leave that at that. Now, if we go back to our navigator here and we click on the caret, we'll see that when we open this, we now have a screen called iPhone 8, and I'm going to call that Start Screen and hit enter. Notice now it says Start Screen here. I'm also going to take the opportunity to double click on the title here and call this First App. And what you're going to do is you're going to create a folder in your documents. Actually, I'd like to say Other. And this will allow us in our Documents folder to make a Sketch Projects folder, and inside of that, I'm going to call this First App Layout. Hit save. Okay, cool. Now another thing in terms of moving your canvas around, if you place 2 fingers on the trackpad and drag, that will allow you to actually move your screen around, your artboard around. All right, so what is next? I'm gonna bring my screen up here and make it bigger. And let's take a look at what we did in our other. All right, so before we get into, to me, these are the kind of the fun things here. We're going to start very simply by making this shape down here. So I'm going to go back to this guy here, and we're going to go to Insert, and we're going to go to Shapes, and you'll see here in the Shapes menu there are all sorts of basic shapes to start with. I am going to start with a rounded rectangle. And when you click and drag this rounded rectangle, you will see that to the right of it you get an exact pixel count, and you can make it whatever size or shape you would like. I am going to have it go about like this, and once I let go you'll see that the inspector changes, and there's a lot going on over here. So first thing I want you guys to do is to look up here. We can center our shape by clicking this little center button, or if we drag it around you can see that we can also see the guides that show up as well. So I'm going to drop this here. When you are working on a shape, this might be closed for you, but you'll see a style option. I want you to scroll down and open that up, and you'll see under fill. Fill is what is on the inside. Likewise, we have the border. Border is the color that goes around the outside. I personally, for this exercise, I'm going to turn the border off. You don't have to. I kind of want you to play around with this a little bit and decide what you want to have your buttons look like. So we have various options for fills. So if we click on this, we're going to get the color picker. So we can choose all different colors for our button. We could make it a gradient, which kind of gives it sort of a 3D effect, and it's kind of cool because you can actually move the different control points for your gradient that way. This is a radial gradient, which can kind of give you sort of a 3-dimensional appearance to your button, which is kind of fun as well. The image fill is actually kind of neat because there's actually quite a few things you can do here. You can pick a texture. Some of these textures are pretty wacky looking. But for this one, we're just going to select a simple color fill because we're going to use the other one in a moment. All right, so I chose kind of a nice lavender color here. And so I chose for mine to have that lavender color and no border. Another thing we can do is we can play around with shadows. We can see when we open up the shadow panel, we can see that we have a shadow show up. It's kind of cool. We can actually adjust the shadow parameters, so you can see by increasing and decreasing the blur. You can also decide how far away in both the X and Y direction you want your shadow to appear. So you can customize that part of it as well. So that is our rectangle, and I'm going to name it, let's see, opinion, because this actually isn't a clickable button. This is more just a, this is where our little text thing is going to go. So next I'm going to insert some text. I'm just going to make a text box here and say, do you like this image? And we can do the same thing. So we can click on this guy, and if we click and drag, you'll see that we can center our text box onto this shape how we want. And you may or may not actually have text that looks like this. It might look like something else. So what I want you guys to do with the text clicked on, you'll see there's some similar things that you saw before, but there's some new stuff down here. So say we can change the justification, for example. We can also set a specific font. So this is where we talked about before. We can get really crazy with fonts, but sometimes it makes most sense to actually use one of the actual built-in fonts from Apple to make things run faster. So we can actually go up to where it says Appearance. We can click, we can click on Apple iOS UI, and I'm going to choose a typical caption, and I'm going to use bold. And I'm going to center it. I'm actually going to also make it a little bigger. And I'm also going to change the color. Okay. Simple, simple. All right, so far we have added a shape, we've added parameters to it, we have added some text, and just for ha-has, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to do an inner shadow. That kind of makes it look like it's cut out of the shape here. Not necessarily like pleasant to look at, but I just wanted to show you that that's an option too. So next thing we're going to do is we are going to go back over and we are going to actually create a shape for the picture to populate in. And so we are going to make another rectangle. I used a star in my, we'll use a rounded rectangle. How about that? That's what most of the apps these days are using. So we're going to make it so it's in line with our button down below. And I'm actually going to adjust these corners a little bit. Actually, in keeping with the way more apps are recently, I'm going to take down the rounded edges a little bit, because these days it's in for things to be less rounded, it seems like. All right, so go back to our start screen. I'm going to click on our newly made rectangle. I'm going to get rid of the border. I'm going to make the shadow whoa, really crazy. And I believe I've made the blur on the other one a little bit higher, but not super concerned about making them match at this point. All right, so next thing we want to do is we actually want to get an actual shape, an actual picture to fill in the shape. So we're going to click on our fill again, and we're going to go over to the picture tab. And this is where things can be pretty cool. So you can apply an image that you have saved and add it, or you can grab a photo from stock photos, which I'm going to show you guys how to do here. So you click on this little label or layers thingy, you click on Unsplash, and you can either select a random photo or search for a photo. And I'm going to look up, there you have it. And if I hit this little refresh button, oops, I didn't search cars that time, that's why. I guess a road is related to cars. So not foolproof, but interesting. There we go. Not a Mercedes fan, but it'll do. Okay, so do you like this image? All right, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just select all this, and I'm actually going to move it down a little bit, because next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to bring in that status bar. We're going to bring in a toolbar down here. I'm going to stop this video and start another one for that part. So if you should have, at this point, you should have your background color selected. You should have your launch button here with your text in it, and you should have your image with a picture, or your square with a picture in it. That is all.